Some tests arrive with a clear beginning, a diagnosis is delivered, a door closes, a person leaves, a plan collapses, but the beginning is not always the hardest part. Sometimes the hardest moment arrives much later, when the shock has passed, the first prayers have been made, people have offered their first words of support, and the difficulty is still there. What happens when the test does not end when you expected? What happens when you have tried to remain hopeful, but the calendar continues moving while your circumstances do not? And what does patience look like when you are no longer facing one terrible day, but a long succession of ordinary days shaped by the same pain? The Quran preserves the story of a prophet who knew prolonged adversity. It does not preserve every detail of his biography. It does not identify his illness. It does not give us a complete timeline. It does not invite us to stare at his suffering. Instead, it directs our attention toward the relationship that remained when so much else had changed. Welcome to the guided hour, where every journey carries a story and every story carries guidance. Today, we journey through the story of Prophet Ayyub, the servant who continued returning to Allah when relief could not yet be seen. The Quran mentions Prophet Ayyub in more than one place. He appears among the prophets who received revelation and guidance, yet the central account of his trial is preserved in two short passages. One appears in Surah Al-Anbiya. The other appears in Surah Sad. Together, they reveal adversity, prayer, action, restoration, mercy, and divine praise, but they do so with remarkable restraint. That restraint matters. When people retell the story of Prophet Ayyub, they sometimes begin by adding details the Quran does not provide. They describe a specific disease. They describe his appearance. They calculate the exact number of years he suffered. They name every person around him. They identify a precise location. They construct conversations and emotional scenes. Some of these details appear in later commentary or historical reports. Some cannot be verified reliably. Some may have entered popular storytelling from sources outside the Islamic tradition. For this reason, we must begin by separating what is known from what is merely repeated. I cannot confirm the exact illness of Prophet Ayyub from the Quran or a reliable, authenticated report. I cannot confirm the complete sequence in which his wealth, health, and family circumstances changed. I cannot confirm a detailed description of his body. I cannot confirm the exact city in which he lived, and I cannot confirm many of the dramatic conversations that are often placed into his story. This does not make the Quranic account incomplete. It helps us see what the account is actually emphasizing. The Quran does not ask us to measure the severity of Prophet Ayyub's wounds. It asks us to recognize the quality of his servanthood. It does not preserve his story to satisfy curiosity about illness. It preserves his story as a reminder for worshippers and people of understanding. That means the missing details are not an invitation to invent. They are an invitation to focus. The first focus is found in the way Allah introduces him. In Surah Sad, Allah directs attention to our servant Ayyub. Before the affliction is mentioned, his relationship to Allah is mentioned. He is a servant. The test did not cancel that identity. Pain did not remove it. Loss did not erase it. A changing body did not change whom he belonged to. This is important because suffering often attacks more than comfort. It can attack identity. A person who was known for energy becomes known for illness. A person who provided for others becomes someone who needs assistance. A parent who organized the household becomes dependent upon the household. A worker becomes a patient. A strong friend becomes the person others speak to in careful voices. The difficulty is not only what has happened to the body or the bank account. The difficulty is the fear that the hardship has replaced the person. But the Quran does not define Prophet Ayyub by the condition that affected him. It identifies him first through servanthood. He remained a servant of Allah before adversity. He remained a servant during adversity. And he remained a servant when restoration came. This protects the dignity of every person living through a prolonged test. You are not only the name of your diagnosis, you are not only your unpaid bill, you are not only the family problem people whisper about. You are not only the examination you failed, the job you lost, the mobility you no longer have, or the grief you carry. Those things may shape your days. They may require treatment, planning, patience, and support. But they do not contain the complete truth about who you are. Prophet Ayyub's identity was not reduced to suffering. The Quran remembers him as a servant. Then comes his call. In Surah Al-Anbiya, Prophet Ayyub calls upon his Lord with words that are brief, honest, and deeply restrained. He says that adversity has touched him. Then he acknowledges Allah as the most merciful of those who show mercy. Notice what he does not do. He does not pretend that nothing hurts. He does not claim that the situation is easy. He does not disguise adversity with artificial cheerfulness. He names it. Harm has touched him. At the same time, he does not turn his prayer into an accusation against Allah. He does not claim that mercy has disappeared. He does not demand that relief arrive according to his timetable. His prayer contains pain and trust together. This is one of the most important features of Prophet Ayyub's story. Patience does not require a person to deny reality. A patient person can say, "This hurts." A patient person can admit exhaustion. A patient person can ask for relief. A patient person can seek treatment. A patient person can tell a trusted family member, doctor, counselor, imam, or friend that support is needed. Patience is not the performance of being unaffected. It is the discipline of continuing to face Allah while being affected. Many people have learned a version of patience that leaves no room for honesty. They believe that sadness means failure. They fear that crying means weakness. They worry that asking when relief will come is automatically an objection to divine decree. They feel guilty for needing rest. They feel ashamed for finding the situation difficult. But Prophet Ayyub's prayer is preserved in the Quran itself. He spoke of adversity. Allah then praised him as patient. The request did not cancel the patience. The pain did not cancel the faith. The prayer revealed where he continued to turn. This is why the Arabic idea of sabr is richer than simply waiting. A person can wait while becoming bitter. A person can wait while harming others. A person can wait while abandoning every responsibility. A person can also wait while remaining truthful, restrained, active where action is possible, and connected to Allah. The passing of time by itself is not patience. Patience is what the person protects while time passes. Prophet Ayyub protected his return to Allah. He protected the language of his prayer. He protected his recognition of mercy. And when the Quran gives its final assessment, Allah says that he found him patient. Imagine the difference between a short crisis and a prolonged one. During a short crisis, the body releases energy, people gather, messages arrive, plans are rearranged. The person says, "We will get through today." But prolonged hardship changes the structure of life. People who first offered assistance may return to their routines. Appointments become normal. Uncertainty becomes familiar. The person learns the sounds of waiting rooms, the language of forms, the pattern of difficult mornings, and the exhaustion of explaining the same situation again. A family may reorganize itself around medication, transportation, treatment, care, or financial pressure. The individual may become tired of being asked whether things are better. Sometimes things are not better. Sometimes they are different but not finished. Sometimes progress comes slowly enough that it is difficult to see. The story of Prophet Ayyub speaks into this kind of time, not only the emergency, the long middle. The long middle can become spiritually confusing because human beings naturally look for explanations. We want to know why. We want to identify a cause. We want the world to feel predictable. This desire can become dangerous when we direct it toward another person's suffering. Someone becomes ill, and people immediately search for a spiritual explanation. Someone loses money, and observers assume irresponsibility. Someone remains unmarried, and people examine personality. A couple has no children, and others begin offering unrequested theories. A person develops depression, and someone tells them that their faith must be weak. A family experiences repeated hardship, and people begin to wonder what they did wrong. This is not guidance. It can become cruelty disguised as certainty. The Quran praises Prophet Ayyub. It does not present his adversity as proof of corruption. It calls him an excellent servant. This should make us careful. A test is not reliable evidence that Allah has rejected a person. Ease is not reliable evidence that Allah approves of everything a person does. Wealth may be a test, poverty may be a test, health may be a test, illness may be a test, public admiration may be a test, isolation may be a test. The external condition alone does not reveal the person's complete standing before Allah. The story of Prophet Ayyub therefore corrects both the sufferer and the observer. It tells the sufferer not to measure divine mercy only through immediate comfort. And it tells the observer not to measure another person's faith through visible hardship. There is another reason to resist invented details. Graphic storytelling can take dignity away from the person whose dignity the Quran protects. When audiences are given frightening descriptions of Prophet Ayyub's body, the story can become a spectacle. Children may remember horror instead of guidance. Adults may remember disease instead of devotion. The listener may leave with a disturbing image rather than a clearer understanding of patience. But the Quran is restrained. It tells us that harm touched him. It tells us that there was distress and suffering. That is enough for us to understand that the trial was real. We do not need to exaggerate what Allah chose not to describe. Prophet Ayyub calls upon his Lord. The word Lord matters. He does not call into emptiness. He calls the one who created him, sustained him, knew his condition, heard his words, and possessed the power to change what no human being could change. Then he speaks of mercy. He does not say that he understands every dimension of his experience. He says, in meaning, that adversity has touched him and that Allah is the most merciful. This is not a complicated speech. It is not an attempt to impress. It is a dua formed from need, recognition, and trust. Some people delay dua because they do not know what to say. They think they need eloquence. They search for the perfect sentence. They worry that their words are too simple. Prophet Ayyub's call shows the power of truthfulness. Describe the need. Recognize the one you are addressing. Ask with humility. Return again. Your words do not need to be dramatic for Allah to hear them. Your pain does not need to be compared with someone else's pain before it deserves to be brought to your Lord. You do not need to prove that your test is the greatest test. You need to know where to turn. This does not mean that every dua will be answered in the same visible way or at the same time. The story of a prophet is not a contract guaranteeing that every illness will end in this life. It would be irresponsible to use Prophet Ayyub's restoration to promise a cure to every patient. Some people recover quickly, some recover gradually, some learn to live with permanent changes, some treatments manage rather than remove a condition. Some people die while still carrying illness, and their hope is with Allah beyond this life. The Quranic promise is not that every servant receives the exact earthly outcome they imagine. The Quranic guidance is that the servant continues turning to Allah and that no faithful patience is meaningless. An authentic teaching of Prophet Muhammad explains that fatigue, disease, sorrow, sadness, hurt, and distress that affect a Muslim can become a means through which sins are removed. Even the pain of a thorn is not ignored. This does not mean that a suffering person should refuse treatment. It does not mean illness should be celebrated. It does not mean we tell a grieving person to stop grieving because reward is possible. It means pain is not necessarily empty. Nothing escapes the knowledge of Allah. The sleepless night is known. The fear before the appointment is known. The caregiver's exhaustion is known. The private tears are known. The effort required to perform an ordinary task is known. The reward may remain hidden from the person, but the experience is not hidden from Allah. Another authentic teaching explains that the believer's affair can contain good in both ease and adversity. When prosperity comes, gratitude becomes good. When adversity comes, patience becomes good. Notice that these are active responses. Gratitude is not merely possessing something. Patience is not merely experiencing something. The believer works to respond to changing circumstances in a way that remains connected to Allah. This is one reason Prophet Ayyub's story does not end with healing alone. It continues into restoration, responsibility, mercy, and gratitude. The change in circumstances creates a new test. How will the servant respond when pain recedes? Will relief produce forgetfulness? Will restored strength produce arrogance? Will the memory of suffering produce fear of every future joy? Or will the person receive blessing while remembering the one from whom it came? Before reaching the restoration, we need to remain a little longer inside the prayer. Prophet Ayyub says that adversity has touched him. The language is gentle, yet the hardship was serious enough for the Quran to preserve the call for every later generation. There is strength in this combination. He is neither theatrical nor dishonest. He is restrained without being silent. This balance is difficult. Some people minimize pain until they collapse. They refuse help because they want to appear strong. They hide symptoms. They conceal financial emergencies. They avoid telling anyone that they are overwhelmed. Then the pressure emerges in anger, withdrawal, or despair. Other people allow pain to become permission to harm everyone nearby. Every conversation becomes an accusation. Every relationship becomes a target. The test is real, but the harm they inflict is also real. Prophet Ayyub's example points toward another path: truth without accusation, need without entitlement, pain without abandoning servanthood. For a child listening to this story, patience might mean continuing to speak respectfully during a difficult season. It might mean telling a parent, teacher, or trusted adult that something hurts instead of suffering alone. It might mean completing the next small responsibility when the entire future feels too large. For a teenager, patience might mean refusing to let rejection decide personal worth. It might mean seeking help for anxiety, bullying, or depression. It might mean continuing to pray while admitting that faith feels harder than it once did. For an adult, patience might mean attending one more appointment, completing one more application, making one more honest conversation possible. Apologizing after stress produced harshness, accepting assistance without believing that dependence has destroyed dignity. For a caregiver, patience may look like consistency that no audience sees, preparing food, organizing medication, driving to appointments. Repeating information, sitting quietly, managing fear while trying not to transfer that fear to the person receiving care. These actions can become forms of faithfulness. Yet caregivers must also hear something important. Patience does not require self-destruction. Seeking assistance is not abandonment. Rest is not betrayal. Asking another family member to share responsibility is not failure. A person cannot pour endlessly from an empty vessel and then pretend that exhaustion is devotion. The story of Prophet Ayyub honors endurance, but it should not be misused to silence legitimate needs. We should never tell an abused person to remain in danger in the name of patience. We should never tell someone to avoid medical care in the name of tawakkul. We should never tell a person with serious mental health symptoms that dua alone means professional assistance is unnecessary. Reliance upon Allah and responsible action belong together, and this becomes especially clear when relief begins. If this journey is helping you understand the story in a new way, take a moment to like this episode, subscribe to the Guided Hour, and share it with someone who may benefit. Your support helps more families discover thoughtful and reliable Islamic storytelling. Now let us return to the moment when Prophet Ayyub received a command beside the water. In Surah Sad, Prophet Ayyub calls upon his Lord concerning distress and suffering. The response includes a command. He is told to strike the ground with his foot. A cool place for washing and drinking is provided. The Quran connects healing with water, but it also connects relief with movement. Prophet Ayyub is not told merely to observe. He is given something to do: strike the ground, wash, drink. The healing comes from Allah, and the servant acts upon the command. This moment teaches a balanced understanding of tawakkul. Reliance upon Allah is not refusing every means. It is recognizing that means do not operate independently of Allah. Medicine is a means, a doctor is a means, food is a means, rest is a means. Exercise may be a means, therapy may be a means, rehabilitation may be a means, community assistance may be a means. None of them guarantees an outcome by itself, but using a lawful means does not weaken reliance upon Allah. Prophet Ayyub was instructed to move, wash, and drink. Action and reliance meet beside the spring. This is valuable for anyone who has confused faith with passivity. A person may ask Allah for employment and still prepare carefully for interviews. A student may ask for success and still study. A family may ask for healing and still consult qualified professionals. A person struggling emotionally may make dua and still speak with a licensed therapist. Someone carrying debt may seek divine help and still build a budget, reduce unnecessary expenses, and negotiate responsibly. The action is not a replacement for reliance. The action can be an expression of reliance. The person acts because Allah created a world in which effort, wisdom, consultation, and treatment have meaning. At the same time, the spring reminds us that relief may come through a path the person could not predict. Before the command, the ground may have appeared like ordinary ground. The answer was near, but it had not yet been revealed. This does not mean every solution is physically close. It does not mean a suffering person has failed to notice an obvious cure. The point is not to create another reason for self-blame. The point is humility. Human beings do not see every path. What appears close to us is not beyond the knowledge or power of Allah. A person may reach the limit of personal imagination without reaching the limit of possibility. The Quran says that Allah removed the adversity affecting Prophet Ayyub. It also says that his family was given to him, with the like of them alongside them. The exact manner of this restoration has been discussed by commentators. Some understood that family members who had died were returned. Others understood that he was reunited with surviving family and later received additional family. The Quran does not provide enough detail for us to declare one complete historical reconstruction with certainty. What it does declare is restoration, mercy, and remembrance. Allah describes the event as mercy from Him and as a reminder. Restoration is not described only as getting possessions back. It is connected to meaning. The person who receives relief is meant to remember. The observer is meant to remember. The worshipper is meant to remember. Those who think deeply are meant to remember. What should be remembered? That adversity does not remove Allah's power. That delay does not remove His knowledge. That the servant may continue returning even when the answer is unseen. That relief is mercy rather than an entitlement. And that a person who has suffered carries responsibilities after relief. Sometimes people imagine recovery as a return to the exact person they were before, but prolonged hardship changes memory. It changes priorities. It may change the body permanently, even when the immediate danger passes. It may change relationships. It may change how safe the world feels. The person may recover physically while remaining afraid that the illness will return. A family may become financially stable while still feeling anxious whenever a bill arrives. Someone who experienced grief may laugh again and then feel guilty for laughing. A person who survived a difficult period may struggle to trust happiness. Restoration, therefore, requires more than declaring that the problem is over. It may require learning how to receive good again. The story of Prophet Ayyub does not suggest that gratitude requires forgetting pain. Gratitude can include memory. In fact, memory may deepen gratitude. The person knows what water feels like after thirst, what rest feels like after exhaustion, what ordinary movement feels like after weakness, what companionship feels like after isolation, what a peaceful day feels like after uncertainty. The blessing is not smaller because the person remembers suffering. It may be recognized more clearly. But suffering can also distort future behavior if it is not processed with humility. Someone who has lost money may become unable to spend even where spending is necessary. Someone who has been betrayed may refuse every future relationship. Someone who has experienced illness may become consumed by fear of every physical sensation. Someone who has been powerless may become controlling once power returns. Someone who was ignored may become cruel when others finally listen. The fact that a person has suffered does not automatically make every later decision wise. Pain can deepen compassion, but it can also deepen fear. It can produce humility, but it can also produce resentment. It can make a person attentive to others, but it can also make the person believe that no one else's difficulty matters. This is why the story continues beyond healing. The Quran then mentions an oath. Prophet Ayyub is instructed to take a bundle in his hand, strike with it, and not break his oath. The verse does not name the other person directly. It does not explain the complete circumstances. Classical commentators commonly understood the other person to be his wife and discussed different reasons for the oath. Because the Quran does not state those details explicitly, we should not present one explanation as unquestionable history. What we can observe is the direction of the Quranic command. A bundle is used, the oath is addressed, severe injury is avoided, and immediately afterward, Allah praises Prophet Ayyub as patient, an excellent servant, and one who repeatedly returned. This part of the story must be handled carefully, especially in a family-friendly episode. It must never be used to justify domestic violence. It must never become permission for a person to strike a spouse in anger. It must never be separated from the verse's merciful resolution and presented as approval of cruelty. The command reduces harm. It provides a way through a difficult oath without turning gratitude for a loyal relationship into severe punishment. The classical commentary itself emphasizes the compassion and service associated with his wife and understands the bundle as a merciful way out. There is guidance here about what happens after pain. Suffering does not make every angry decision correct. A person may have endured something terrible and still need to repair words spoken during the crisis. A caregiver may have served faithfully and still need an apology for being treated harshly. A family may have survived a difficult period and still need to rebuild trust. A promise made in anger does not become wise merely because the angry person was suffering. Pain explains some behavior. It does not automatically excuse all behavior. This is important in homes where stress has become normal. Financial pressure can make voices louder. Illness can shorten patience. Sleep deprivation can make small disagreements feel enormous. Caregiving can produce resentment that no one wants to admit. Children may begin walking carefully through the home because they do not know which version of an exhausted adult they will meet. People may say, "I am under pressure," as though pressure removes responsibility. But the story of Prophet Ayyub moves toward mercy, restraint, and a lawful resolution. A person who has suffered remains responsible for how they treat others. Patience is not only enduring what happens to you. It includes restraining what pain might cause you to do to someone else. The final Quranic description of Prophet Ayyub is extraordinary. Allah says that he found him patient. What an excellent servant. He was repeatedly turning back. This is the Quran's assessment, not the assessment of neighbors, not the rumors of observers. Not the conclusions of people who saw hardship and assumed guilt. Allah names the quality that defined him through the test: patient, excellent in servanthood, returning again and again. The expression repeatedly returning gives us a deeper picture of patience. Patience is not one decision made at the beginning of the trial. It is return after return. A person may wake with trust and become afraid by afternoon, then return. A person may pray with confidence one day and feel emotionally empty the next, then return. A person may speak gently for weeks and lose control during one exhausted moment, then apologize, seek forgiveness, repair the harm, and return. A person may follow a treatment plan, become discouraged by slow progress, and want to abandon everything. Then pause, consult, adjust, and return. The path is not always a straight emotional line. The defining direction is the return. This protects people from two opposite mistakes. The first mistake is believing that one moment of weakness destroys the entire journey. A person cries and thinks patience has ended. A person becomes frightened and thinks faith has disappeared. A person asks why the test is continuing and thinks the question has removed them from mercy, but the servant returns. The second mistake is using the language of returning without taking responsibility. A person repeatedly harms others, apologizes without changing, and assumes that words alone complete repentance. True return includes movement. It includes correction. It includes seeking forgiveness from Allah and repairing the rights of people where possible. Prophet Ayyub's story includes prayer, action, restraint, and gratitude. An authenticated report preserved in Sahih al-Bukhari gives us another scene after restoration. Prophet Muhammad explained that Prophet Ayyub was bathing when golden locusts fell upon him. He began gathering them into his garment. He was asked whether he had already been given enough. Prophet Ayyub affirmed that he had, while expressing that he could never be independent of the blessing of Allah. This report reveals something beautiful. Contentment is not the rejection of blessing. Prophet Ayyub did not say, "I have suffered, so I must now refuse every good thing." He recognized blessing as blessing. Sometimes people develop a fearful relationship with ease after hardship. They believe that enjoying something will cause it to be taken. They feel guilty when life becomes peaceful. They think spirituality requires permanent sadness. They hesitate to accept lawful provision because they associate deprivation with righteousness. But Prophet Ayyub gathered the blessing. He knew that having enough did not make him independent of Allah. The problem is not receiving. The problem is forgetting the giver. A person may own little and still be arrogant. A person may receive much and remain humble. The question is what the blessing does to the heart and how it is used. The golden locusts also reverse the logic of loss. During adversity, a person may feel that everything is leaving. Strength leaves, opportunity leaves, certainty leaves, people may leave, money may leave, plans may leave. Then, in this authenticated report, provision arrives from a direction beyond ordinary expectation. The scene should not be turned into a formula for wealth. It is not a promise that every patient person will receive gold. It is a sign within Prophet Ayyub's particular story. Its guidance lies in gratitude, dependence upon Allah, and the servant's capacity to receive blessing without claiming ownership independent of the one who provided it. Now consider how different Prophet Ayyub's patience is from passive resignation. He called upon Allah, he identified suffering, he responded to a command, he moved, he washed, he drank, he received restoration. He handled an oath through the merciful path shown to him, he accepted blessing, and through every stage he returned to Allah. This is active patience. It protects faith without denying reality. It accepts human responsibility without pretending that human action controls every outcome. It leaves room for grief without giving grief authority over every decision. It asks for relief without making worship dependent upon receiving immediate relief. The story also changes the responsibilities of the community. It is easy to admire patience from a distance. It is harder to become a person who makes patience less lonely for someone else. A community may praise Prophet Ayyub while avoiding the sick. It may celebrate caregiving while failing to assist caregivers. It may speak about divine reward while refusing to provide transportation, meals, childcare, financial assistance, or companionship. It may remind the suffering person to be patient while showing no patience with repeated needs. This is a contradiction the story should help us recognize. When visiting or supporting someone in hardship, not every silence needs to be filled. Not every pain needs an explanation. Not every test needs a comparison. A person may not need to hear about someone who had it worse. They may not need advice. They may need to be believed. They may need practical help. They may need someone to ask, "What would make this week easier?" They may need support that preserves choice and dignity rather than making them feel like a burden. They may need a friend who continues calling after the first month when everyone else assumes the crisis has passed. Long tests require long compassion. We should also be careful with religious language. Telling someone that suffering can carry reward may be true, but timing, tone, and relationship matter. A sentence can be correct and still be delivered without wisdom. The person may first need to hear, "I am sorry this is difficult." They may need space to describe what is happening. They may need medical attention. They may need protection. They may need sleep. They may need someone to sit with them without transforming their pain into a lecture. Prophet Ayyub's prayer was directed to Allah. The Quran allows us to hear it with reverence. It does not show an audience correcting his expression of suffering. There is also guidance for those whose hardship is invisible. Not every test can be seen. Chronic pain may not be visible. Anxiety may not be visible. Grief may not be visible. Infertility may not be visible. Financial pressure may not be visible. The effort required to appear functional may conceal the seriousness of what a person carries. Observers sometimes assume that appearance reveals capacity. They say, "You look fine." They ask why the person is still tired. They interpret cancelled plans as lack of care. They treat accommodation as unfair advantage. The story of Prophet Ayyub teaches humility before what we do not know. Allah knew his adversity completely. Human beings rarely know another person's condition completely. For the person living through the invisible test, Prophet Ayyub's story offers neither shame nor a simplistic promise. It offers a direction: turn toward Allah, describe the harm honestly, remember mercy even when mercy is not yet visible in the form you desire. Use the lawful means available. Do not measure your worth by productivity alone. Do not assume that needing help has ended your usefulness. Do not permit pain to become cruelty. And when blessing arrives, receive it with gratitude rather than fear. The Quran describes Prophet Ayyub's restoration as a reminder for worshippers. That phrase makes the story larger than one man's recovery. A reminder is something the human being already needs but repeatedly forgets. We forget that control is limited. We forget that health is a blessing until movement becomes difficult. We forget the value of quiet days. We forget the people who serve without recognition. We forget that our explanations are smaller than Allah's knowledge. We forget that a delayed answer is not an unheard prayer. We forget that the person suffering beside us needs compassion more than analysis. And we forget that relief creates responsibilities of its own. What does the story ask the healthy person to become? Grateful without arrogance, available to those who need support, careful not to judge, prepared to use strength in service. What does it ask the suffering person to become? Truthful without accusation, hopeful without pretending, active without imagining that control is absolute, patient without becoming passive. What does it ask the caregiver to become? Compassionate but also honest about limits, reliable but not isolated, service-oriented but not erased. What does it ask the entire community to become? A place where people can experience weakness without losing dignity. Imagine a community that learned this story correctly. The person with illness would not need to prove suffering repeatedly. The family facing financial difficulty would receive assistance without humiliation. The caregiver would be asked what support they need. Children would learn that patience includes asking trusted adults for help. Adults would stop treating every hardship as evidence of hidden wrongdoing. Religious reminders would be offered with tenderness rather than superiority. Treatment and dua would not be placed in competition. Relief would be celebrated without creating false promises for those whose relief has not yet arrived. And the name of Prophet Ayyub would become more than a slogan spoken whenever someone is told to endure. His story would become a framework for how to endure, how to pray, how to act, how to support, and how to receive restoration. There is a temptation to turn the story into one sentence. Prophet Ayyub was patient, so be patient, but that is too shallow. The Quran shows us the anatomy of his patience. He remained a servant. He called upon his Lord. He named the adversity. He recognized mercy. He accepted a command. He took action. He received healing. He navigated an oath through a merciful resolution. He accepted provision. He continued returning. This is not a decorative moral attached to the end. It is a pattern running through the entire account. Perhaps your test has a name. Perhaps it is written in a medical file. Perhaps it appears on a financial statement. Perhaps it is stored in messages you cannot bring yourself to delete. Perhaps it is connected to an empty chair, an unanswered application, a strained relationship, or a future that no longer looks as you expected. Perhaps no one else knows. You may not know when the test will change. This story does not authorize anyone to promise you a date, but it does ask a question that remains within your reach. Where will you continue turning? You may turn toward resentment, allowing pain to speak through every relationship. You may turn toward isolation, refusing every hand because accepting help feels dangerous. You may turn toward artificial certainty, inventing explanations Allah has not revealed. Or you may turn, again and again, toward the one who heard Prophet Ayyub. You may say that harm has touched you. You may ask for mercy. You may take the next responsible step. You may rest when rest is needed. You may apologize where pain has produced harm. You may accept the blessing that arrives without believing you are independent of its giver. And when you fall emotionally, you may return again. Returning does not mean the pain was imaginary. It means the pain did not become your Lord. Returning does not mean you understand every decree. It means you remember who possesses complete understanding. Returning does not mean you stop asking for relief. It means you continue asking the one whose mercy is greater than your ability to describe the need. The final image of Prophet Ayyub is not an image of disease. It is not an image of abandonment. It is not even merely an image of water or restored provision. It is the image contained in the words with which Allah remembers him: patient, an excellent servant, constantly returning. The length of the test did not determine the direction of his heart. The loss did not become the final definition of his life, and the relief did not make him independent of Allah. Through adversity and restoration, he remained a servant. That is why his story continues to speak whenever a person whispers a prayer after hope has become tired, whenever a caregiver completes another unseen act of service, whenever someone chooses not to judge a suffering person, whenever a patient takes the next lawful step while trusting the outcome to Allah, whenever blessing returns and the heart remembers where it came from. You have been listening to The Guided Hour, where every journey carries a story and every story carries guidance. Until our next journey, may Allah increase us in beneficial knowledge and guide us toward what is true.